I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center. Even the New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a mess.
BillMaher seems to be the lone voice refusing to drink the Mamdani Kool-Aid, calling him out again and again for what he sees as Manny's hard-left ideology. Now that Mamdani has secured the New York mayor seat and is preparing to roll out an aggressive slate of policies, Maher insists the Democrats are playing with fire. He's warning loudly that this could backfire on the entire party. Buckle up. Things are about to get wild.
Democrats must recognize that Zohran Mamdani is the future of the party. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party. Get it? And if you missed his victory speech in last week's mayoral election in New York, don't worry. You'll see it in every attack ad for the next 2 years. Now, Mamdani seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get fucking torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again.
Maher kicked things off by warning that electing Mamdani as New York mayor could be the very moment that hands the 2028 presidential race to the Republicans. In his view, Mamdani isn't just left-leaning, he a full-on socialist promoting ideas like free grocery stores, police defunding, free bus service, and a long roster of expansive government-funded programs. Maher argued that while these proposals might excite the hyper-progressive wing of the Democratic base, they're completely out of sync with the rest of the country. Many millennials, older voters, and moderates remain deeply skeptical or outright fearful of anything labeled socialism. And in Maher's eyes, tying the Democratic Party to Mamdani agenda amounts to political self-sabotage. Rather than energizing voters, he believes it could drive away the very groups Democrats need to win. Over time, Maher warns, this direction could blow up in spectacular fashion.
Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical, am I right, lady? Well, at least the party has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh?
Zohran's aggressive push for socialist policies has electrified the party Gen Z wing, who are rallying behind him as if he's the next political savior. To them, his proposals feel bold, innovative, and transformative. But older Democrats want nothing to do with the word socialism. To that faction, it political poisons something that has already cost the party dearly. And just like that, Democrats are split down the middle, one camp demanding a fully socialist agenda, the other fighting to pull the party back toward the center. Two loud factions. Two competing visions. One party edging toward a breaking point. So the real question is, how do they move forward without tearing themselves apart? Maher jumps in with a hard dose of reality, urging Democrats to choose a path that doesn't alienate half the country. In his view, if the party wants to survive, it needs strategy, not wishful thinking.
So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center. Even the New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win. And Democrats should recognize the party moved too far left on social issues after Obama left office. Gosh, if only someone had been saying that all along.
According to Maher, the Democratic Party's only real path to survival is to ditch the fringe leftist fantasies that have taken over and steer themselves back toward the political center. He argues that Democrats have spent far too much time chasing ideas that thrill Twitter activists, but alienate the very voters they need to win national elections. Instead of fixating on ideological experiments and symbolic battles, Maher says the party has to refocus on the issues that actually keep everyday Americans up at night: rising costs, public safety, education, healthcare, and economic stability. These are the concerns that resonate with workers, seniors, parents, and moderates across the country. In Maher's view, the problem isn't that Democrats lack solutions, it's that they've let themselves get sidetracked by loud, impractical policies that don't reflect real-world priorities. The sooner they abandon that detour, he warns, the better their chances of political survival.
But welcome home. Problem is, Gen Z thinks socialism's wired and capitalism's tired and billionaires are what's for dinner. And who can blame them? If you're 30 and still sharing a bathroom with roommates, capitalism isn't working for you. People will reject any economic system where there's strange hair on the soap.
I don't blame Gen Z for where they've landed. Many older voices haven't given them a full or balanced view of the world. Instead of offering a nuanced understanding of history and geopolitics, they've allowed distorted narratives to shape how young people interpret events. As a result, many Gen Zers have adopted sharply polarized views on the Israel-Palestine conflict, often relying on simplified storylines rather than grasping the deeper complexities. They've been exposed to versions of American history that portray figures like Lincoln and George Washington as irredeemably villainous, rather than complex leaders who helped shape the nation. Some have even come to believe that Palestine represents a freer, more just society than the United States, an idea that doesn't hold up when compared with on-the-ground realities. So am I surprised that socialism is gaining such passionate support among them? Not at all. When facts get blurred and history becomes distorted, it's easy for idealized, unrealistic ideologies to take root.
No one wants to be approaching middle age and still writing their name on food before they put it in the fridge. So they're quiet quitting capitalism and texting socialism that they're down to fuck. Thing is, socialism will fuck you. Because socialism, to put it simply, just doesn't work and has never worked. Like Kevin Federer.
Socialism has a long track record of struggling in practice, and critics warn that New York could be heading down the same path. You don't need a political scientist or an economist to see it. Anyone paying attention can spot the cracks forming before the experiment even begins. The promises sound grand and the slogans are loud, but the reality rarely matches the rhetoric. Already, Mamdani is trying to distance New York from federal funding, attempting to build a financial bubble he alone controls so he won't have to answer to Washington, especially not to Donald Trump. But critics say this move exposes a glaring weakness. If the system becomes shaky the moment federal support is removed, sustainability becomes a serious question. Instead of building a stronger, more resilient city, Mamdani seems more focused on proving a political point, even if it drags New York into a financial and political mess.
I know the kids think that stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a f***ing mess.
Critics fear this is exactly where New York is headed if Mamdani stays on this trajectory. Instead of becoming a showcase for progressive innovation, the city could end up as a cautionary tale, another example cited when highlighting why socialist-style policies often falter in real-world conditions. If Mamdani keeps pushing initiatives that drain resources, weaken public safety, and strain the city's finances to the breaking point, New York could soon top the list of what not to do, and the political fallout wouldn't stop there. You can already imagine the looming tension between Mamdani and the governor, two leaders battling for control and claiming the moral high ground. That power struggle alone could throw the state into instability, fueling confusion, gridlock, and constant clashes over whose vision should prevail. If this path continues, New York may become the defining example critics cite when warning about the destructive consequences of socialism.
It seems to me that there are two pillars that this country is founded on. One is democracy, and one is capitalism, free markets. And it seems like one party wants to get rid of one, and the other party wants to get rid of the other. Right? The Republicans are not that, democracy is just not number one on their list. It just isn't. It isn't. It's behind Christianity and a few other things. And the Democrats, I mean, I read these, 74% are for democratic socialism. Only 16% favor capitalism. Is this going to be a country that I don't recognize in 5 to 10 years if we don't have these two pillars?
I don't agree with BillMaher or the Republicans on everything, especially their constant doomsday rhetoric about democracy. But on one point, Maher is absolutely right. The DNC is drifting further and further into full-blown socialism. And this isn't the first time he's sounded the alarm. Remember when Maher warned that Democrats would lose last year's elections if they didn't drop the endless woke posturing? He practically begged them to refocus on real issues instead of chasing social media theatrics. They ignored him, and his prediction ended up being dead on. The DNC didn't just lose, they lost badly. Now Maher is issuing another warning, this time about money and the party's growing fixation on fringe leftist ideology. And once again, it seems no one in Democratic leadership is paying attention. They appear determined to repeat the same mistakes, even if it drags the entire party straight over the cliff.
Remember the woman, when Trump won the first time, she was like, no, it was like an iconic, she was with her glasses.
Vaguely,
if Mamdani wins, I'm going to remake that video in New York.
Oh, that's funny.
Because that's how I'll feel.
What will you say if he gets into office and says, look, the Palestinian thing is being settled. I'm now the mayor of New York. I don't want to talk about that anymore. So if you ask me any questions about Palestine, I'm the mayor of New York. I have feelings about it. I have opinions.
Great.
They're right.
You shouldn't talk about it.
I seriously doubt Mamdani will walk back any of the policies he ran on. He built his entire political identity on those promises. And now he's locked into delivering them no matter how unrealistic, impractical, or outright impossible they may be. At this stage, backing down would be politically disastrous. He knows that if voters begin to suspect he tossed out lofty, feel-good pledges just to win applause and score points, he's done. His whole brand depends on proving that his radical proposals aren't just campaign rhetoric but can somehow work in the real world. So instead of adjusting to reality, he's more likely to double down, hoping sheer determination will cover up the cracks in his plans. But that gamble could blow up in his face. If voters eventually recognize they fell for empty promises, Mamdani's career won't merely suffer, it'll be over.
It is a walking commercial for the Republican Party nationally.
I think the Republicans are going to...
When you let the Democrat socialists, and now they're actually calling themselves socialists, when you let them take over a major American city, this is what you get. The state-run grocery stores, which work so well in Cuba and the Soviet Union and Venezuela, just bad idea.
In the end, the Democrats are standing at a crossroads, and the choices they make now could define their future for years. With Mamdani pushing radical socialist policies, courting Gen Z, and doubling down on his most controversial positions, the party risks both internal chaos and external attacks. BillMaher warnings aren't just commentary, they're a clear-eyed assessment of a party on the verge of losing touch with the very voters it needs to survive. From policy overreach to ideological obsession, the signs are everywhere. Deep divisions between young radicals and older moderates, lofty promises that may never be achievable, and strategic missteps opponents will exploit without mercy. Democrats can either recalibrate, refocus on issues that resonate with everyday Americans, and find their way back to the center, or they can double down on fantasy politics and watch their influence erode. At this pace, the consequences could be catastrophic. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.